엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Coming up on Arirang News. President Yoon marking 2 years in office in a rare press conference, apologizes for coming short in improving people's lives and for the scandal surrounding the First Lady, while also announcing that he'll create a new ministry to tackle the record low birth rate. He also emphasizes the robustness of the South Korea-U.S. alliance. South Korea's current account recorded a surplus for the 11th consecutive month in March, mainly thanks to strong exports of semiconductors. The government's Special Committee on Medical Reform is holding its second meeting tomorrow with public discussions on the ongoing medical sector dispute. Major doctors' groups refused to participate in the first one. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We begin with President Yoon's press conference earlier today, marking the 2-year anniversary of his inauguration. Beginning with a 22-minute opening address, followed by a Q&A session lasting more than 70 minutes, he reflected on his past 2 years while providing his vision for the next 3. He also faced tough questions himself. Our presidential correspondent Kim Do-yeon starts us off.
The very first message from President Yoon as the public tuned in on Thursday to his first press conference in 21 months was that he was sorry for coming up short in improving people's lives over the past 2 years. And with the decision to face the media coming after he vowed to enhance communication following the ruling People Power Party's losses in the general election, he called for cooperation at the opposition-led National Assembly.
국민 여러분, 정부가 민생을 위해 일을 더 잘하려면 국회의 협력이 반드시 필요합니다. 앞으로 여야 정당과 소통을 늘리고 민생 분야 협업도 더욱 강화하겠습니다. 국회에도 당부 말씀을 드립니다. 정쟁을 멈추고 민생을 위해 정부와 여야가 함께 일하라는 것이 민심이라고 생각합니다.
He answered the 2 most anticipated questions himself during the Q&A session that followed, but without a change in stance that his aides had previously reflected. But for the first time, President Yoon apologized for what he called his wife's unwise actions, referring to her accepting a luxury bag back in 2022, but he refrained from commenting about the recently opened investigation by the prosecution, saying any comments could be seen as influencing a fair investigation. Regarding the death of a young Marine who was swept away by flood water during a search and rescue mission following a flood last year, and allegations of the government interfering with an investigation into the incident, he hinted at vetoing the special probe bill passed by the Assembly, at least for now.
지금 이렇게 진행되는 것을 잘 지켜보고 아마 모든 절차가 마무리되면 또 국민 여러분께 수사 당국에서 아마 상세하게 수사 경과와 또 결과를 잘 설명을 할 것인데 그걸 보고 만약에 국민들께서 이거는 봐주기 의혹이 있다, 납득이 안 된다라고 하시면은 그때는 제가 특검하자고 먼저 주장을 하겠습니다.
There was also a surprising announcement as he explained his next 3 years in office. He said he's seeking to create a new ministry to respond to the urgent issue of South Korea's low birth rate, with significant administrative power or, in his terms, aggressive policies, unlike now, when only consultative groups have been formed for this.
저출생 대응기획부 장관이 사회부총리를 맡도록 해서 교육, 노동, 복지를 아우르는 정책을 수립하고 단순히 복지정책 차원을 넘어 국가 아젠다가 되도록 하겠습니다.
As for medical reform, with the doctors' collective action against the government plan to raise the medical school enrollment quota to tackle the nation's need for more doctors, he reiterated that the administration will push through while calling on doctors to come up with a combined opinion on the current process. 김도현, 아리랑 뉴스.
During the press conference, President Yoon also emphasized the robustness of South Korea-U.S. alliance. He addressed how he's going to handle relations with the U.S., Japan, and Russia for the next 3 years. Our senior presidential correspondent, Oh Soo-young, reports.
President Yoon Suk-yeol said he is confident South Korea's alliance with the United States will stay solid, amid concerns that a possible return of former President Donald Trump would undermine bilateral security cooperation. This came at a press conference held to mark 2 years since he took office. Asked about Trump's recent remarks on South Korea's share of defense costs to keep American troops in the country, hinting at their possible withdrawal if Seoul doesn't increase its contribution, Yoon said he wouldn't speculate on the upcoming U.S. election, but said he is confident that the solid alliance between Korea and the U.S. will not change. Defense sharing costs during the past Trump administration had been a major source of contention, and Seoul already agreed to hike its contribution 13.9% from 2019 to over $1 billion in 2021. As the current agreement expires at the end of the year, the two sides began their first round of talks in Hawaii last month. Yoon said various negotiations and issues can be resolved amicably, adding there is strong support for the bilateral alliance from the U.S. Senate, House, and both Democratic and Republican camps. Having emphasized the central role of Seoul's trilateral cooperation with Washington and Tokyo in its video message before the press conference, Yoon also indicated he will continue strengthening relations with Japan despite their historical differences.
우리의 미래를 위해서 또 구체적으로는 북핵 대응을 위해서 또 양국의 경제 협력을 위해서 또 인태지역과 글로벌 사회에서 양국의 어떤 공동 아젠다에 대한 어떤 리더십 확보를 위해서 협력해야 된다고 생각합니다.
Also, when asked about North Korea's illegal arms cooperation with Russia, Yoon said Pyongyang's export of weapons in itself backs the illegal conduct of war in Ukraine, and as it violates United Nations Security Council resolutions, Seoul is taking necessary responses. He acknowledged Seoul and Moscow's ties are in an uneasy situation, adding the two sides should cooperate where they can, but Seoul will oppose or make adjustments based on their different positions. Looking beyond the Korean peninsula and its immediate neighbourhood, President Yoon reflected on the progress made so far on South Korea's goal of becoming a global pivotal state, a responsible contributor to the international community. His office noted that Yoon has held 153 summits with some 97 world leaders since his inauguration, expanding South Korea's ties with countries in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, 3 major Gulf states, and Pacific Island nations. While South Korea looks to broaden its access to overseas markets, the country also aims to contribute to global development efforts, raising its official development assistance budget by 31% compared to last year, to $4.57 billion. The leader is set to host the first ever Korea-Africa Summit next month, with some 54 African nations in Seoul, focusing on shared growth, sustainability and solidarity. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Reactions from the rival parties to President Yoon's Thursday's press conference were sharply divided. The ruling People Power Party emphasized his commitment to addressing people's livelihoods and improving communication. Chief spokesperson Chung Hee-young noted that Yoon admitted past mistakes and promised to listen humbly to criticism. On the other hand, main opposition Democratic Party floor leader Park Chan-dae said the press conference was disappointing, criticizing it for, quote, not meeting public expectations. The DP said the president showed no intention of accepting special counsel investigations into First Lady Kim Gun-hee and the death of a Marine during a search and rescue operation. The ruling People Power Party elected on Thursday Choo Kyung-ho, a former deputy prime minister and soon-to-be third-term lawmaker, as its new floor leader in the 22nd National Assembly. 102 out of 108 PPP lawmakers-elect participated in voting, resulting in a majority win by Choo with 70 votes. Other contenders, Lee Jong-bae and Song Seok-jun, won 21 and 11 respectively. Choo will begin his third consecutive term in the assembly at the end of this month, representing a district in the traditionally conservative city of Daegu. A PPP floor leader serves for 1 year and has the authority to convene necessary meetings and make committee assignments, among other tasks. In his acceptance speech, Choo highlighted the importance of unity within the PPP to push for policies that can earn the people's trust. South Korea's current account recorded a surplus for the 11th consecutive month in March, mainly thanks to strong exports of semiconductors. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the latest numbers.
South Korea's trade balance logged a surplus once again as chip exports showed a robust recovery and energy prices fell. Preliminary data released by the Bank of Korea on Thursday show that the country's current account balance came to $6.93 billion in March. This is the 11th month in a row for the account to be in the black, following a surplus of just over $6.8 billion in February. With this latest data, the current account balance in the first quarter of the year recorded $16.84 billion in total, a notable rebound from the negative figures seen in the first quarter of 2023. The goods account tracking imports and exports experienced a surplus for a year as semiconductor exports jumped by over 34% compared to the same month last year.
Goods exports centered around chips and IT products rose for 6 straight months, while goods imports, with raw materials such as oil, gas and coal continued to decline.
Data also show that outbound shipments of electronic goods increased by around 21% year-on-year, while exports of chemical goods dropped by over 11%. Another key reason the goods account maintained a surplus was lower import cost of raw materials due to falling energy prices. The value of gas imports, for one, fell by nearly 38% on year, and the value of coal imports dropped by more than 40%. This led to an overall decline of imports by 13.1% compared to March last year. However, the services balance, which includes earnings and spending on overseas trips and transport, was in the red by $2.43 billion. The travel sector in particular recorded a deficit of $1.07 billion, but that's lower than the previous month's tally, which the BOK explained as more overseas travelers visiting the country. Meanwhile, the primary account balance responsible for monitoring foreign workers' wages and overseas dividend payments reported a surplus of $1.83 billion. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
The government's Special Committee on Medical Reform is holding its second meeting tomorrow with public discussions on the ongoing medical sector dispute. Major doctors group refused to participate in the first one. Choo Kyung-ho files this report.
Social discussion and medical reform will start in earnest at a second meeting of the Presidential Special Committee on Medical Reform on Friday. The Health Ministry announced on Thursday that medical reform, including the increase in new medical students, is the first step to correct distortions in South Korea's healthcare sector, which has long faced serious problems. Health Minister Choo Kyung-ho said the ministry will also enhance support for its emergency response system. To fill in a healthcare gap, the Health Ministry plans to allow doctors with foreign licenses to provide medical services here, but only when the healthcare alert level reaches serious, as it is now due to the prolonged walkout by trainee junior doctors. The ministry gave official notice on Wednesday of a revision to the medical law, stating this was to address the shortage of doctors. However, organizations representing doctors immediately criticized the decision, alleging it would bring about a huge decline in the quality of medical services. The ministry will accept opinions on the revision up until May 20th, and it is expected to be implemented as early as the end of this month. Meanwhile, the academic boards at Busan National University, 320 kilometers south of Seoul in Busan, and Jeju National University decided not to revise their internal regulations on increasing the medical school quota. The board said that, as there is no social consensus regarding the increase, they would keep the number of new students at the current levels. The government expressed regret over this, while some experts said it seemed surprised at the unexpected opposition from the key regional hub national universities, which were at the core of the medical school expansion policy. The Education Ministry said that since the government determines medical school quotas, not the schools themselves, their regulations must be revised prior to the implementation of the government policies. If the universities fail to revise their regulations, they could face a suspension of medical school admissions for 2025. So far, out of the 32 universities where medical school quotas have been increased, 12 universities have completed the revision of regulations to reflect this. Choo Kyung-ho, Arirang News.
Over in the U.S., the Biden administration appears to be using its leverage over weapon shipments to Israel to try to influence the course of the war in Gaza. Shin Se-byuk explains.
U.S. President Joe Biden said the U.S. would not supply weapons to Israel, which it could use to attack Rafah. In an interview on Wednesday, Biden said that while Washington is still committed to Israel's defense, his administration was not going to supply weapons and artillery shells that would be used in Rafah. The move is a clear statement against Israel's recent ground operation in the southernmost city in the Gaza Strip. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, speaking before the Senate Appropriations Committee the same day, confirmed the temporary halt of the weapons shipments.
As we have assessed the situation, we paused one shipment of high payload munitions.
He stressed that Israel should not launch major attacks in Rafah without ensuring the protection and safety of civilians in the conflict zone. Secretary Austin also noted that a final decision on whether to proceed with the shipments has not yet been made. The weapons were reported to include 1,800 2,000-pound bombs and 1,700 500-pound bombs. This confirmation by a senior U.S. government official follows several reports of the temporary suspension amid disagreements over Israel's actions in Rafah and marks its first public acknowledgement of the decision. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller, in a briefing on Wednesday, also acknowledged the suspension in response to Washington's concerns of a major operation in Rafah by the Israeli military.
And we also have concerns about the impact of any potential operation on the delivery of humanitarian assistance. So we have paused one shipment of near-term assistance, and we are reviewing others.
The Biden administration's decision has reportedly prompted Israel to warn that it could endanger talks on hostage deals. According to U.S. media outlet Axios on Wednesday, senior Israeli officials have expressed deep frustration and dissatisfaction with the White House decision to delay the weapons shipments. Reports also suggest that Israel is outraged not only by the halt of the shipments, but also by the leak of disinformation to the press. Israel has also cautioned the U.S. that this decision might jeopardize efforts to negotiate a ceasefire and secure the release of the hostages. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
In other news, within the next 3 decades, a quarter of Asia's population will be over 60. South Korea is already heading into a rapidly aging society, and with life expectancy increasing, people in their 60s and older are heading back to school. Our An Sung-jin takes a closer look.
This is just another day at school for 67-year-old An Soo-hee. After decades running her own clothing business, she's back at school, paying attention and jotting down notes to level up her skills and future job prospects.
People now live up to 100 years, and I haven't even made it past 2/3, which means I have so much time left. I enjoy studying here, and once I graduate, I either want to volunteer at a nursing home or provide counseling for those in need.
There are more than 1,300 passionate students like An at this lifelong education institution.
Studying here is one of the best things I've done in my life. I feel like I've upgraded myself. After all, what is life without being able to enjoy it?
Just like any other high school, this institute teaches basic subjects such as science, math, English, and how to use computers. Supported by the Seoul Metropolitan Office of Education, it provides the entirety of its education curriculum at no cost.
We provide the opportunity to learn and find a job. I encourage students to continue the process of learning. It helps them maintain their health. That's why our school offers a variety of classes with musical instruments, dance and sports.
More of the aging population are looking to go back into the workforce. The labor force participation rate for those 60 and above reached 43% in the first quarter of 2024. That's up from 39% for the same period in 2021.
With the population in Asia aging rapidly, many people will have to work well past their 60th birthday. But a senior economist explains why it's not just money that motivates seniors to go back to work.
So one is not necessarily the immediate financial need, but because you have a longer life ahead of you, you would think maybe as long as I can work and healthy, just because of those longevity risks, you want to work longer. Second is more to do with the connection to the society.
With more seniors looking to re-enter the workforce, companies and employees need to adapt to this changing population dynamic. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
The 2024 Korea Drone Expo kicked off today with the sport of the future, drone soccer, taking center stage. Our Lee Soo-jin went to the battlefield where hundreds of participants from home and abroad are competing for the championship, showing off their drone dribbling skills.
It's a soccer match, but instead of a ball flying through the air, it's multiple drones. This drone soccer match is taking place at the 2024 Korea Drone Expo, a 3-day event that kicked off on Thursday. Attendees here can see how drones are used now, as well as how they might be used in the future, such as drone soccer.
South Korean companies are the only ones that can make drone soccer balls, with carbon materials that meet international standards.
This year's International Drone Soccer Festival, one of the highlights of the Korea Drone Expo, is the largest ever with more than 400 players from 20 countries taking part. Drone soccer is a new ICT-integrated sport founded in Korea that's now being played across the world. It involves 2 teams where each player has their own drone and a position. And the winner is determined by the team that scores the most goals by maneuvering drones through the opposing team's goal.
It's fun to see which strategy leads to a win. I'm most looking forward to seeing what game strategies the foreign players use.
Really getting to know the team and bonding together in order to come together and make a good play be my favorite part. What I am looking forward to the most. Gain a good experience and of course to play against the other Korean team.
The fast-growing popularity of drone soccer was also reflected in the first session of the Federation of International Drone Soccer Association, where discussions were held about the first ever Drone Soccer World Cup that's scheduled to take place in 2025. But participants from all over the world aren't just here for drone soccer. This year's event also featured a separate section for global drone enterprises from 12 different countries for the first time to provide a glimpse into global drone trends.
With the ongoing drone soccer matches and drone booth displays, attendees from all over the world will continue to witness various applications of drone technology. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Moving on. This year's Royal Culture Festival ended last weekend, drawing over 600,000 visitors during a 9-day duration until May 5th. According to officials on Thursday, a quarter of all visitors were from overseas, making a threefold increase compared to the previous year. Hosted by the Cultural Heritage Administration every spring and fall, the festival was hosted across the 5 royal palaces and the Jongmyo Shrine in Seoul. Visitors can enjoy traditional Korean culture in many different ways, including special performances and palace experiences. This year's fall edition will start on the 9th of October.
It was a bit chilly on the way to work today, but temperatures rose during the day. Tomorrow morning, temperatures will get 2 to 7 degrees warmer than they were today, and daytime temperatures 2 to 3 degrees higher. The daily temperature differences are also very wide, making it easy to catch a cold. In inland areas, there will be places where the temperature difference varies greatly from 15 degrees to 20 degrees. It's better to bring a thin jacket to control your body temperature. Tomorrow, Chuncheon, Daejeon, and Gwangju will start off at 11 degrees Celsius. Highs will be topping out at 25 in Chuncheon, Daejeon, and Gwangju. Gyeongju, 29 degrees. There is rain forecast all over the country this coming weekend. It will rain in most parts of the country from the evening. It's expected to continue until Sunday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. That is all for this newscast tonight. Thank you for watching, and good night.
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, who's lying? Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.